I guess we're good to go. All right, we are live. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
How is everybody doing this morning? Yeah, all right. So today we're going to go to the U.S. state of Maine. So by a show of hands, who's been to the U.S. state of Maine? Anybody? Anybody at all? You? So I guess sort of, not really one of you. Okay, all right. So today we're going to be talking about the northernmost New England state. So let's talk about that, shall we? So we got this blue field on. We're going to talk about the flag first. You got this blue field, and you have this little coat of arms. I guess you could say this crest right over here. And you have these two men flanking the shield over here. This man is a sailor. This man is a farmer. And right in the middle, you have these trees over here, and you have a river right down on the bottom, these green fields right over here that make up part of the forest, and you have a little moose right in the middle. You have the star up here, and then on the bottom it says Dirigo. It's Latin for I lead. And in case any of you are lost, this is, just look at the flag right here. It is the U.S. state of Maine. So don't worry if you're lost, just look at the flag. You'll find out where you are pretty quickly. So I was going to say, let's move on to the next slide, but then I realized I forgot to put up the map of the U.S. So I'm just going to show you right up here. This is where the U.S. state of Maine is located, right up in the northernmost part. It is surrounded by Canada, New Hampshire, and the Atlantic Ocean. So to those of you who are wondering, it is pretty cold over there. Thank you, Carmen. So speaking of which, the capital of Maine is Augusta, but the largest city is Portland. Not to be confused with Portland, Oregon. That's a whole other city. So just keep that in mind. And because of where it's located, it has what is called a continental weather, which means that during the winter and autumn seasons, it could be cold, it could be snowy, yeah, pretty windy. And when it's summer and spring, it's usually mildly warm, but warm enough at least that the snow melts. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So just keep that in mind, ladies and gentlemen. And as far as its geography is concerned, it is defined by its coastal lowlands, meaning that a lot of things are flat, lower than the mountains, and then you have this long coastline, obviously. So we're going to talk about how the coastline is very significant, and as far as the culture and the people, and yes, your favorite topic, food. So shall we talk about some brief history here? So if you guys look on a map over here, people believed this is what Maine looked like because it was largely unexplored, it was uncharted. So because of that, you had these little diagrams and these images, but they do sort of have an accurate idea because it has rivers and lakes, tributaries, and you have these river deltas, no, not necessarily river deltas, but waterways that spill over into the water. So before there were European colonists, we talked about these people before. There were the Algonquin people. They lived here before European arrival, and they were a huge influence on what we now know as American democracy and our symbolism. And yes, if you pull out your dollar bill, you'll see a lot of the Algonquin symbols like arrows and leaves on a wreath, and, as well as the eagles themselves. So yeah, you're going to notice a lot of what used to be the remnants of Native American people, especially a subgroup of people called the red painted people. And they were a maritime Native American people of the Algonquins. They were fishermen. And soon after that, you had the Norse people from northern Africa, northern Europe, coming over to what we now know as North America. They settled in places like Eastern Canada, Eastern U.S., sort of. I say sort of because we don't have too many records about that. And so it wasn't until about the 1700s it was established as a colony of the British Empire. and then it became a 23rd state under the Missouri Compromise in 1820. Trust me, there's a complicated history behind that. Yeah, because Canada and the U.S. were fighting over Maine. So, complicated story. So, as far as why it's called the U.S. state of Maine, it's because there were so many terminologies for the quote-unquote mainland. So, Maine has a lot of, I guess you could say, a lot of origin stories, especially with the spelling of the name. The spelling of the name of Maine, M-A-I-N-E, has also been spelled M-E-Y-N-E. So yeah, that's where the name comes from. So let's talk about what it's known for.
Whoa.
Take a look at this. This is St. Croix Island. It is one of those islands that form a boundary between us, the U.S., and over there in Canada. So yes, if you ever go to this island, it separates. So if you have, I'm just saying, you'll want to be careful what you call this place because some people call it Canada, some people call it America. So this is what separates the U.S. and Canada as far as New England is concerned. And let's hope they don't discover anything else that will create more conflict. So yeah, you got that little island over there. And in case you guys are wondering, yeah, there's a bit of a cliff, not necessarily a cliff, but a highland area right over here. So you're going to have to find some other road to go up onto the top. So that's a certain thing that you may want to look out for. So let's move on to the next slide, shall we? So this is Acadia National Park. It's one of the most famous national parks in the U.S. state of Maine. And it's over there that people often go to see the sunrise of a certain place in the entire national park called Summit. Excuse me, the summit of Cadillac Mountain. And I don't mean the car, the Cadillac. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's very pretty. Yeah. You got lakes, you have mountains, you have forests. And if we move on to the next slide, this is what people come here for. This is the sunrise. This is literally what everybody goes to Acadia Mountain for. And that is to see the sunrise. And yes, people are bundling up in their blankets over here. People have congregated over here. Sunrise should be somewhere about over here. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. Everywhere you go in Acadia National Park, there's a chance that you'll see the sunset, the sunrise. But you will never see a sunrise like this when you go to Cadillac Mountain. So let's talk about more what the U.S. state of Maine is known for. I mentioned the city of Portland, not the city of Portland, Oregon, but Portland, Maine. This is the largest city. So as you can see, there's a lot of old style architecture over here. So this was built somewhere before the mid-1800s, before the 1900s. You have these red brick buildings, and on the back you have these modern buildings constructed within recent times. So yeah, the city of Portland has been known as not only just the largest city in Maine, but it's also a place where you got commerce, economy, art, culture, things like that. So a lot of the things you have in a major city, this is pretty much what they have over here. So if you ever go to the city of Portland, try not to confuse this with the Oregon state city of Portland. I promise you that won't be pretty. Or even if nothing bad happens, they'll just probably laugh. So let's talk about sports.
Whoa.
Celtic Maine, the Maine Celtics. That's a lobster, in case anyone's wondering. No, that is a lobster. Although you could call them that. They're not that dissimilar. So, yeah, they're from the city of Portland, and they're a pro basketball team. And so far, they've only won 3 division titles. So, let's see how long it'll take for them to rack up more titles, right? And let's talk about another sports team, the Portland Sea Dogs. That is a sea dog, in case anyone's wondering. And yes, it has a bat in its mouth because it's going to go play baseball. But they're not a pro baseball team. They are a minor league team. They've only won 1 league title and 5 division titles. So, yeah, it was a little better, I guess. So, go Sea Dogs, I guess. Yeah. So, we're going to move on now to our favorite segment, food.
Wow. Gunpowder. Whoa.
Now, we're going to be talking about a little thing called maple sugar and syrup. Because of where Maine is located, you'll find a lot of maple trees, and they will use the syrup and the sugar for everything. They will use the liquid for their syrups, and yes, they use some of the sugar for what we see here, gunpowder whiskey.
Wow.
Yeah, because you can use sugar for a lot of things, not just in foods. You can use it in alcoholic beverages. You can use it for pretty much everyday household uses. You can use sugar for a lot of things, really. So that's why they took advantage of this. Mm-hmm. So yeah, if you guys like syrup, try some maple syrup. Let's talk about more. Who likes French fries? Yeah, these are called duck fries. The reason why is because they're French fries cooked in duck fat. That's why it's called duck fat. Duck fat fries. Oh, come on. Don't tell me you've never tried duck. Okay.
Does it make you quack?
And here I thought I had bad jokes. It doesn't make me quack. Gotta bring Daniel back here. He's a drummer. He can do a rim shot for us. So yeah, these are their special fries, duck fat fries. Trust me, if it tastes different from your regular fries, you're gonna find out why immediately. So, shall we talk about more food? Clam rolls. These are what are called clam rolls. So you got clams over here stuffed into a bread roll. Oh yeah, even pickles. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. This looks really good.
That looks good.
I'm not gonna lie. If I had to go to Maine right now, I would get this immediately.
I would get that everything except for French fries.
Really?
Yeah, I don't want to quack.
You don't want to quack. Again. So we're almost done with food. So here's what is called Indian pie.
What is that?
It's called Indian pie. So Indian pie is made with hasty pudding, cornmeal, molasses, and it's all cooked in milk with ginger and cinnamon. And it's served at this little place called Warren's Lobster House. So if you ever go to Warren's Lobster House, be sure you get this as your little bit of dessert. So, yeah. By a show of hands, would you ever try this?
Yes. I know that, Jeremy. I know that.
Oh, yeah, by the way, it's served with ice cream on top.
See that, Jeremy?
Yeah, I saw.
Is that in the...
Yeah.
In the...
Mm-hmm.
You guys know it.
Yeah, I know. But you're paying attention to this, aren't you?
That's been so good. That's good.
Yeah, by a show of hands, who goes for the ice cream first?
Yeah.
Because why have the pie when you can have the dessert first? The top of the dessert, the ice cream.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know about you, but as someone who likes ice cream, I'd go for that first. I forget the rest of the dessert later. I'm just saying, as much as I like sweets. Yeah. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about some famous people. Who recognizes this man? No? Nobody? This is Stephen King.
Really?
This is Stephen King.
Nice.
By a show of hands, who's heard of Stephen King? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Really? Wow. I thought everybody would have known who he was. Okay, so to those of you who don't know who Stephen King is, he is one of the most renowned authors in America. He's also well known for writing horror novels. A lot of movies are based on his books. So we're going to talk about those books, shall we? So by a show of hands, who's heard of these titles? It's Carrie and The Shining. Yeah, there's only one hand, I see. Okay.
Have I watched it?
Have you watched any of the movies based on these books?
I think Carrie. Remember
Yeah.
Shining.
Yeah, I've seen all of these.
Like,
It,
my
Carrie,
eyes
Shine. Yeah, and it's so funny because most people have seen these movies, but they have no idea they're based on books written by Stephen King. So yeah, you have Carrie, which was like a horrific movie to watch. It was terrifying because of clowns. Well, more like the killer clown in this one. And then The Shining, you had ghosts. So beware of that. Oh yeah, these are not the only titles. You also have Stand By Me, Shawshank Redemption, also based on a Stephen King book. Well, it's more like based on a novella called Rita Hayworth and the Shawshank Redemption. That was the original title. So there's a bunch that I can go through. There's a list, a literal list of movies based on his books.
Did he do the Fight Club?
No, that was Chuck Palahniuk. Yeah. Yeah. So for a man who wrote horror novels, he certainly lived in a creepy house, as we're about to see in the next slide. Doesn't this look like a haunted house to you guys?
Yeah. The gate does.
Those are gargoyles.
That from that movie, the orphan, I think?
The orphanage?
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe. So here's the funny thing is that Carrie was written when Stephen King was an English high school teacher. And right about this time, he would live in this one house. It was located in Bangor, but now he lives in a certain place called Center Lowell, and he spends his winters in Florida. Like a lot of people from Maine, they go to Florida during the winter. Not too sure why. But okay. But yeah, throughout much of his life, he spent in this house right over here.
Wow.
So yeah, right about the time when he was becoming a big name in the literature scene, when he was publishing his horror novels, yeah, I can only imagine this house must have either gotten him inspiration in the best ways or the worst ways possible. I mean, how much you want to bet that house is haunted in some way?
I'm not going to find out for you.
I was kind of hoping somebody would respond to that question.
Yeah, buddy.
I didn't think I would get it that intensely. Yeah. So let's talk about the people of Maine. So here's your little map. Here's Canada. Here's the Gulf of Maine, which is within the Atlantic Ocean. And here's New Hampshire, where we just were, or, you know, where we were in New England. And so here's Augusta, and here's Portland down here. And this is where Stephen King used to live, in the city of Bangor. It lies on a little river that goes down. Yeah. Did I forget to mention a lot of his novels take place in the state of Maine? Like It, for example. There's a fictional town called Derry that exists nowhere. It's just a town based on his own town. So, yeah. So this is what Maine looks like. You have these mountains over here. You have these lowland valleys over here, the flatlands, and then you have the coastlines over here, which is why it could get pretty cold and it could get pretty snowy because you're further north of the hemisphere and because you're closer to the ocean, which in turn is closer to the north of the hemisphere. Yeah, pretty much. So the most common ancestries are English, Irish, French, and German. Again, I fit nowhere in those categories. So yeah, and as of 2019, there are over 1 million people living in Maine, with most of them living in Portland. So yeah, not much of a demographic number size, but hey, it's something, right? So let's conclude today's class, shall we?
Here's my favorite part.
It's expired. 2016. Call the DMV of Maine.
EMT.
So here's your license plate. You got the little bird over here on top of a pine tree, and it says vacation land on the bottom because apparently this is where people go to vacation. It just happens to be one of those places. Gee, Stephen King, I wonder why it's a vacation land now.
They're going to see that house.
They're going to see that house, find out if it's haunted. Carmen, you are coming with me.
I am not going with you, Jared. Sorry.
What if I paid you?
I'm not going with you.
What if I paid you?
Nope. Not going.
Okay, fine.
I'm
That's
going to send you with them.
okay, that's fine.
Want to go with them?
No.
No one wants to see the ghost with me?
Nope.
Okay.
Do you want to go?
All right.
You like ghosts?
You don't know what
You
you're
said
missing.
Joe and you like ghosts.
You don't.
Go with me.
You have no idea what you're missing out on.
I'll take your word for it.
Okay, fine. Take
Just
my
don't-
word.
Just don't bring them back with you.
Oh, I cannot promise you that. That's on them. That's not on me. Seriously, you've not seen enough horror films to know that?
It's a ride. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's conclude today's class, people. It's not exactly the most well-known state, but it does have some of its hidden gems. If it's not the food, I know you guys like that. If it's not Stephen King, a well-known horror novelist, if it's not the sports teams, it's got to be something. There's always something up there. So if you ever go to the U.S. state of Maine, you have to look carefully for any hidden gems that you may not have learned today, but you will some other time. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, so much for joining me. I'll see you on the road.
Thank you. Great job. Thank you.
See you guys.
Go, Maine.